My name is Nolan Hayes. I am 33 years old, and until last year, I believed work problems should stay at work. I worked as a CNC systems programmer at a manufacturing plant in Indiana. My job was to create and maintain software that controlled large industrial machines. When everything ran smoothly, nobody noticed my work. But when a machine stopped, everyone noticed. I lived with my wife, Claire. She taught elementary school and loved quiet mornings, books, and strong coffee. Our life wasn't exciting, but it was peaceful, and that was enough for us. One Thursday evening felt completely normal. I finished work around 6, drove home, and found Claire making dinner. We spent the evening talking about our days. She told me funny stories about her students. I told her about a new production system I had spent hours testing. Everything worked perfectly before I left the factory. By 10 o'clock, we were both asleep. I had no idea that a simple phone call would change the entire next day. I woke suddenly before sunrise. The room was dark. For a second, I didn't know why I was awake. Then I heard it. A phone vibrating somewhere in the living room. I sat up and noticed Claire wasn't beside me. Moments later, she appeared in the doorway. Her face looked pale. "Nolan," she said quietly. "Your manager called me." I frowned. "What?" She wrapped her arms around herself. "He called a few minutes ago asking where you were." Confusion hit me instantly. "Why would he call you?" "I don't know," she replied. "I thought something terrible happened." Her voice cracked slightly. That was when I understood. While I had been sleeping, she had been terrified. My stomach tightened. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my supervisor, Richard Bennett. A message waited underneath them. "Call me ASAP. Machine failure." I sighed and called him back. He answered immediately. "Nolan, finally. I was asleep. One of your machines stopped during the night shift. We need you here immediately." I glanced at Claire. She still looked shaken. "I'll come in," I said. After hanging up, I sat beside her. "I'm sorry you got dragged into this." She nodded. "I honestly thought you were hurt." Hearing that made something inside me harden. A machine problem was one thing. Calling my wife before dawn was something else. The factory was nearly empty when I arrived. Night shift workers looked exhausted. One operator hurried toward me. "The machine crashed around 3 this morning," he explained. I walked straight to the production floor. The machine stood silent. I began checking logs, settings, and code. Everything looked normal. 5 minutes later, I pressed start. The machine came to life instantly. No errors. No warnings. No failures. Nothing. I stared at the screen. "So that's it?" I asked. The operator looked equally confused. "Apparently." A wave of frustration rolled through me. My wife had spent the morning believing I might be dead or injured, and the machine was functioning perfectly. A few minutes later, Richard appeared. When he saw the equipment running, his shoulders relaxed. "Good," he said. "Must have been temporary." I turned toward him. "You called Claire." His expression barely changed. "I couldn't reach you." "That doesn't justify calling my wife." He folded his arms. I needed answers. It was 6 in the morning. It was urgent. I pointed toward the machine. This. Richard looked uncomfortable. The line was down. For a machine that's working perfectly now. His jaw tightened. Nolan, production delays cost money. I nodded. I understand that. What I don't understand is why you thought it was appropriate to wake my wife and scare her half to death. For the first time, he seemed caught off guard. I wasn't trying to scare anyone. But you did. The words hung between us. He looked away briefly. I was focused on solving a problem. And created another one. Several nearby workers quietly moved away. Nobody wanted to stand in the middle of a disagreement between an employee and his manager. Richard sighed. You're making too much of this. That sentence irritated me more than anything else. No, I said calmly. I'm not. I told him exactly what Claire had experienced. The fear. The panic. The uncertainty. How she had sat awake imagining worst-case scenarios. His expression softened slightly. But only slightly. I still don't think I did anything wrong. That was the moment I stopped trying to convince him. Instead, I made a decision. If you can't see the problem, then we need clear boundaries. What boundaries? You contact me for work issues. Not my family. He nodded. Fine. And Claire deserves an apology. His face hardened again. No. I stared at him for several seconds. Then I simply said, okay. He seemed surprised by my reaction. Okay. Yes. I walked away. Not because I agreed with him. Because arguing further wouldn't change anything. At my desk, I opened a blank email. I documented everything. The missed calls. The time. The situation. The fact that there had been no emergency. I explained professionally that personal family contacts should only be used for genuine emergencies involving employee safety. Before sending it, I read every line twice. Then I clicked send. The response arrived later that morning. Richard acknowledged my concerns and promised not to contact Claire again. But he still refused to apologize. When my shift ended, I drove home feeling exhausted. Claire was in the kitchen when I arrived. She looked calmer than she had that morning. I told her everything. The machine. The conversation. The email. She listened quietly. When I finished, she smiled faintly. You stood up for us. Of course. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That simple gesture meant more than she realized. The next morning, another email appeared. This time, it was different. Richard admitted he had spent the evening thinking about our conversation. Then came the words I wasn't expecting. I'm sorry for contacting Claire so early and causing unnecessary fear. It won't happen again. I read the message twice. Not because it was perfect. Because it was sincere. When I showed Claire, she smiled for real. And suddenly the weight I had been carrying disappeared. A few days later, things at work felt normal again. Richard and I weren't enemies. We simply understood each other better. Looking back, the lesson wasn't really about a broken machine. It was about respect. Work matters. Deadlines matter. Business matters. But people matter more. Sometimes speaking up feels uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels risky. But silence doesn't always protect peace. Sometimes it only protects the problem. That morning taught me something I will never forget. Protect your boundaries. Protect the people you love. And never be afraid to calmly stand up for what is right.
Thanks for watching my story. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next story.